Black dandyism is a rich and compelling practice that, after migration to the United States, was transformed by the Black American community from its history in slavery to today's hip hop culture. At its core, a dandy is a man who places particular emphasis on his appearance, fashion, and lifestyle, often seeking to project an image of elegance and stylishness. In the context of Black American culture, dandyism emerged as a unique response to the societal constraints imposed by racism and classism. Frederick Douglass, for example, was meticulous about his self-presentation, understanding that his dignified appearance directly challenged white supremacist narratives. He carefully composed photographic portraits that were deliberate political statements. He was the most photographed American of the 19th century. The seeds of the Black dandyism were sown during slavery, a time when the very act of dressing well could risk a person's life. Enslaved individuals were stripped of their dignity, forced to wear drab clothing that reflected the total control of their owners. The elaborate formal attire during cakewalks shares some connection with dandyism. The cakewalk dance originated among enslaved Americans who were indeed mocking the formal dances and mannerisms of white plantation owners and the wealthy white class. This performance involved exaggerated stylized movements that parodied the stiff, formal European dances and behaviors of the slave-owning class. Dandy and cakewalk involves adopting and adapting elements of European high fashion in ways that serve Black expression. However, they represent different, though sometimes overlapping, traditions. Cakewalk performances often involve dressing in fancy, sometimes exaggerated versions of white formal wear as part of the satirical performance, while Black dandyism emerged more as a serious form of self-presentation and identity expression rather than primarily as mockery. The Black dandy, a figure not merely concerned with aesthetics, but one who wielded fashion as an act of defiance against a system bent on belittling a Black man's worth. As the 19th century rolled in, the rise of free Black people in northern cities like Philadelphia, New York, and Boston provided a fertile ground for dandyism to flourish. Parades and balls became venues for Black men and women to flaunt their finery. Those events were not solely about style. They represented a profound rejection of societal expectations and a claim to agency in public spaces. Stereotypes persisted. White caricatures ridiculed well-dressed Black men, associating elegance with pretentiousness. Yet through the bold act of dressing well, Black dandies communicated a simple but powerful message. We are worthy. Our existence is not a joke. The minstrelsy era complicated the presentation of the positive image of Black Americans. While minstrel shows often aimed to mock Black dignity through exaggerated stereotypes, figures like George Walker emerged as a vital agent of change. Partnered with iconic Burt Williams, Walker's portrayal of the dandy was a savvy reclamation. He took what was intended as a parody and infused it with authenticity, elegance, and confidence. George Walker's charm rejected the notion of Black men in jest. Instead, he stood tall as a well-dressed symbol of defiance against a culture that sought to box him into a caricature. By the time the turn of the century arrived, the dandy had evolved, but the struggle against the mockery of Black identity remained as prevalent as ever. Dandyism didn't just reflect a personal style, it questioned societal norms and undermined stereotypes. Fast forward to the 20th century when hip-hop exploded onto the national scene. Here we find traces of Black dandyism in the culture's emphasis on self-expression through fashion. As hip-hop artists began to claim the limelight, they infused dandyism with a new edge. Just as early Black dandies donned the fine suits to assert their worth in judgmental worlds, Influential figures like Dapper Dan revolutionized fashion by creating luxury counterculture through his Harlem boutique in the 1980s, reimagining European luxury logos into bold new silhouettes. Before him, jazz luminaries like Duke Ellington and Miles Davis established their own satirical traditions that challenged mainstream fashion conventions while asserting black creative autonomy. They elevated fashion, not just as an aesthetic display, but as a commentary on race, class, and culture. Amidst the rhythms and verses, the hip hop scene has brought dandyism full circle, marrying its historical roots with modern rebellion. Contemporary artists operate within a landscape shaped by earlier dandies. They redefine what it means to be fashionable, powerful, and unapologetically black in their identity. In this ongoing narrative, Black dandyism persists as a form of resistance, a fashionable protest against the stereotypes and structures that continue to seek to define and confine. Each tailored suit, each piece of jewelry recalls the journey from a past fraught with limitation to a present where self expression reigns supreme. Black dandyism is a celebration, a rebellion, and an assertion of identity that connects generations, echoing a message that is unmistakably clear. Style meets substance, and dignity is non negotiable.